The wheels of Olivia Zeller's wagon screamed in protest as the vehicle lurched over another jagged rock on the unforgiving trail to Canon City, Colorado territory. It was 1871, and the 22-year-old widow clutched the reins with white knuckles, her heart hammering against her ribs as the sound of splintering wood pierced the late afternoon air. "No, no, please," she whispered, pulling back on the reins as her two weary horses came to a stop. The wagon gave one final groan before the rear axle snapped completely, sending the back end crashing to the ground. Her meager possessions, all she had left in the world, spilled onto the dusty trail. Olivia climbed down, her navy blue traveling dress catching on a nail as she surveyed the damage. The wheel was beyond repair, the axle split clean through, and several boards had cracked along the bottom. 6 months after burying her husband Thomas following a sudden fever, and 3 weeks into her journey west to start anew with her cousin in Colorado, Olivia Zeller was stranded in the wilderness. The dying sunlight cast long shadows across the trail as Olivia assessed her situation. She was perhaps 15 miles from Canon City if her calculations were correct, too far to walk before nightfall with wolves and other dangers lurking in the hills. Her provisions would last another week if she was careful. She had Thomas's revolver, though she'd fired it only twice in her life. Tears threatened, but Olivia blinked them away. She hadn't survived losing her parents to cholera at 16, marrying young, and then losing Thomas at 21 just to die on a lonely trail because of a broken wagon. She would make camp, rest the horses, and figure out what to do come morning. She had just finished securing her horses to a nearby tree and was attempting to salvage what she could from the wagon when the sound of hoofbeats made her freeze. Grabbing Thomas's revolver from her trunk, she positioned herself behind the broken wagon, heart pounding as a lone rider appeared around the bend. The man rode tall in the saddle, his broad shoulders silhouetted against the darkening sky. His horse, a magnificent chestnut quarter horse, slowed as it approached. The stranger pushed back his hat, revealing a face weathered by sun and wind, with sharp cheekbones and eyes the color of a summer storm. He couldn't have been more than 30. "Evening, madam," he called, keeping a respectful distance. "Looks like you've had some trouble." Olivia kept the revolver half hidden in the folds of her skirt. "Just a broken axle," she replied, trying to keep her voice steady. "I'll manage." The man's eyes took in the scene: the broken wagon, her white-knuckled grip partially concealing the revolver, and the approaching darkness. A slight smile touched his lips, though there was nothing mocking in it. "Name's Isaac Prescott," he said, removing his hat completely to reveal dark hair that curled slightly at the nape of his neck. "I've got a ranch about 3 miles from here. Be dark soon, and this ain't a good place for a lady to spend the night alone." "I'm quite capable of taking care of myself, Mr. Prescott," Olivia said, though her voice wavered slightly. "No doubt," Isaac replied, his eyes flickering to the revolver in her hand. "But there's wolves in these hills, not to mention the occasional mountain lion. And your wagon's beyond a quick fix." He paused. "I'm offering you shelter for the night, madam. Tomorrow I can help you get that wagon to my ranch and see about repairs." Olivia hesitated, weighing her limited options. Her grandmother had always warned her about the dangers of trusting strangers, but her grandmother had never been stranded with a broken wagon miles from civilization as darkness fell. "Mrs. Olivia Zeller," she finally said, lowering the revolver slightly. "Heading to Canon City to stay with my cousin." Isaac nodded. "Pleased to meet you, Mrs. Zeller. Now, what do you say we gather what you need for the night and get you somewhere safe? I give you my word as a gentleman that you'll come to no harm." There was something in his steady gaze that made Olivia believe him. Perhaps it was foolish, but she had always prided herself on being a good judge of character. "Very well, Mr. Prescott, I accept your offer." Within half an hour, Isaac had helped her pack her most valuable possessions into saddlebags. He insisted she ride his horse while he led it on foot, walking alongside her 2 horses that he'd untethered from the broken wagon. The remainder of her belongings he covered with a tarp he'd had in his saddlebag, promising they'd return for them tomorrow. As they made their way toward his ranch, Olivia studied her rescuer's profile. There was a quiet strength about him, a confidence that came from a life lived on one's own terms. "What brings you all the way out here alone, Mrs. Zeller?" he asked after they had walked in silence for a time. Olivia considered her response. "My husband passed 6 months ago. Fever took him in less than a week." She swallowed hard. "There was nothing left for me in Missouri. My cousin Sarah has been in Canon City for 3 years now. She wrote that there's opportunity there, that a woman with skills can make her own way." "I'm sorry about your husband," Isaac said, his voice genuinely sympathetic. "And your cousin's right. Canon City's growing fast. What skills do you bring, if you don't mind my asking?" "I was a school teacher before I married," Olivia replied, "and I can sew well enough. Thomas taught me bookkeeping for his carpentry business." She smoothed her skirt, feeling a small surge of pride. "I'm a quick learner, Mr. Prescott." Isaac nodded. Canon City could use another teacher, schools bursting at the seams with all the new families settling in. As they crested a small hill, Isaac's ranch came into view. It wasn't grand, but it was well kept, a sturdy main house, a large barn, a bunkhouse, and several corrals. A few cattle grazed in a nearby pasture, and smoke rose from the chimney of the main house. "It's not much," Isaac said, misinterpreting her silence as disappointment, "but it's mine. Paid for it free and clear last year." "It's lovely," Olivia said sincerely. "You've built something to be proud of." A hint of a smile crossed his face. "Thank you, Mrs. Zeller." As they approached, a grizzled older man emerged from the barn. "Pete," Isaac called, "we've got a guest. Mrs. Zeller's wagon broke down on the pass. She'll be staying with us tonight." Pete nodded respectfully in Olivia's direction. "Madam, I'll see to your horses." Isaac helped Olivia down from his horse, his hands strong and steady at her waist. For a moment they stood close, and Olivia was acutely aware of his height and the faint scent of leather and pine that clung to him. "Thank you," she said, taking a small step back. "Let's get you settled," Isaac replied, leading her toward the house. The interior of Isaac's home was simple but comfortable, a large main room with a stone fireplace, a solid table with 4 chairs, a few sturdy pieces of furniture, and bookshelves that surprised Olivia with their number of volumes. "You're a reader," she observed, running her fingers along the spines. "Winter nights get long out here," Isaac replied, stoking the fire. "Books are good company." He gestured toward a door off the main room. "That's my sister's room when she visits. You can use it tonight. The washroom's through there." "Your sister visits often?" Olivia asked, relieved to hear there was another woman in his life, even if not presently. "Rebecca lives in Denver with her husband now. They have twin boys." A genuine smile transformed his face. "They visit every few months. She left some things here you might be able to use, night clothes and such." Olivia nodded gratefully. "I appreciate your hospitality, Mr. Prescott. I don't know what I would have done if you hadn't come along." "Just doing what any decent person would," he replied, then added, "I'll have Pete bring up some water for you to wash, and I'll fix us some supper." True to his word, within the hour Olivia had been able to wash the dust from her face and hands and change into a clean blouse she'd packed in her satchel. When she emerged from the bedroom, the aroma of cooking food made her stomach rumble. reminding her she hadn't eaten since noon. Isaac stood at the stove, his sleeves rolled up as he tended to a pan of sizzling meat. "Hope you like venison," he said without turning. "Shot this buck 2 days ago." "It smells wonderful," Olivia replied honestly. They ate at his table, the venison accompanied by potatoes and biscuits that, while a bit misshapen, tasted delicious with honey. "Did you make these?" Olivia asked, taking another biscuit. Isaac's ears reddened slightly. "I'm not much of a cook, but I can manage biscuits and a few other things." "Pete handles most of the cooking when he's not busy with the ranch." "How many men do you employ?" "Just Pete full-time. Hire on extra hands during calving and roundup." Isaac took a sip of coffee. "It's not a big operation yet, but it's growing. How long have you been here?" Olivia asked, genuinely curious about this quiet, capable man. "Came out in '65 after the war." A shadow crossed his face. "Needed open spaces after 4 years of fighting. Started with 20 acres and 6 cows. Now I've got 200 acres and 60 head." Olivia studied him across the table. "You were in the war. Which side?" "Union," Isaac replied. "4th Illinois Cavalry." He met her eyes. "And you, Mrs. Zeller, where did your sympathies lie?" Olivia set down her fork. "My father believed slavery was an abomination, Mr. Prescott, so did I." She paused. "Thomas was too young to fight, but his older brother died at Antietam." Isaac nodded, something in his expression softening. "Too many good men died on both sides." After supper, Isaac insisted Olivia take the rocking chair by the fire while he washed the dishes. She was exhausted but found herself watching him move about the kitchen, his movements efficient and practiced. "Mr. Prescott," she said suddenly, "how do you suppose we'll get my wagon here tomorrow? It's too broken to move." Isaac turned, drying his hands on a towel. "I've got a wagon. We'll bring your things back first, then see about salvaging yours. Might be easier to build you a new one, though." "Build one?" Olivia asked, surprised. "I do a bit of carpentry," he replied with a modest shrug. "Learned from my father." Olivia smiled, feeling the weight of the day pressing down on her. "You're a man of many talents, Mr. Prescott." "Isaac," he said, "if we're going to be working on your wagon together, you might as well use my given name." "Isaac," she repeated, testing the name. "Then you must call me Olivia." "Olivia," he said, and something about the way her name sounded in his deep voice made her heart skip a beat. "Get some rest. Tomorrow will be a full day." As Olivia settled into the clean, comfortable bed in Rebecca's room, she found herself wondering about the enigmatic rancher who had so unexpectedly come to her aid. There was a steadiness about him, a quiet confidence that she found reassuring. For the first time since Thomas's death, Olivia felt something stir within her, not quite hope, perhaps, but the possibility of it. Morning came with the crowing of a rooster and the smell of coffee. Olivia dressed quickly in her second-best traveling dress, a dark green wool that had seen better days but was still presentable. She pinned her light brown hair up as neatly as she could without a proper mirror and made her way to the main room. Isaac was already up, dressed in a fresh shirt, his damp hair suggesting he'd already washed. He looked up from the stove when she entered, his eyes taking in her appearance with an appreciation that was respectful yet unmistakable. "Morning," he said, pouring her a cup of coffee. "Sleep well." "Better than I expected," she admitted, accepting the cup gratefully. "Thank you." They shared a simple breakfast of eggs and more of yesterday's biscuits, making plans for the day. Isaac would take her in his wagon back to her broken one, where they would collect the rest of her belongings. Then he would assess whether her wagon could be repaired or if, as he suspected, she would need a new one built. How long would building a new wagon take? Olivia asked as they walked toward the barn where Pete had already hitched up Isaac's wagon. Depends on what materials I have on hand, Isaac replied. A week, maybe 2. Olivia stopped in her tracks. A week, but my cousin is expecting me. She'll worry if I don't arrive soon. Isaac paused. We can send word to her from town. Pete's heading in today for supplies. I couldn't impose on you for so long, Olivia protested. Isaac's eyes met hers steadily. It's no imposition. Rebecca's room is sitting empty and I've got the materials and tools. He hesitated, then added, unless you're uncomfortable staying here. Olivia considered his words. She had already spent one night under his roof and felt safer than she had in months. There was something trustworthy about Isaac Prescott, something honorable. I'll pay you for your work, she said firmly. A hint of a smile touched his lips. We can discuss that later. He offered his hand to help her up onto the wagon seat. For now, let's retrieve your belongings. The journey back to her broken wagon took less time in daylight, and Olivia was relieved to find everything as they had left it, the tarp still securely covering her possessions. Together, they loaded her trunks, furniture, and supplies into Isaac's wagon. While they worked, Isaac examined the broken axle and splintered boards of her wagon with a craftsman's eye. The wheels are salvageable, he said, running his hand along one, and some of the wood. But the axle is beyond repair, and most of the bed will need replacing. Olivia sighed, looking at the wagon that had carried her so many miles. It had been Thomas's, used in his carpentry business, and one of the few things she'd been able to keep after settling his debts. So it will need to be rebuilt, she said, a hint of sadness in her voice. Isaac looked up, catching the emotion in her tone. Was it your husband's? Olivia nodded. We'll use what we can from it, Isaac promised. Keep something of his craftsmanship in the new one. The thoughtfulness of his words touched her deeply. Thank you, she said simply. Once everything was loaded, Isaac dismantled the broken wagon as much as possible, salvaging the wheels, some of the sideboards, and hardware. They secured these to his wagon as well, leaving behind only the most damaged pieces. On the ride back to the ranch, Olivia found herself studying Isaac's profile as he drove the team. His jaw was strong, with a day's growth of beard darkening it. His hands on the reins were capable and confident. Tell me about your cousin in Canon City, Isaac said, breaking the comfortable silence that had settled between them. Sarah is my mother's sister's daughter, Olivia replied. She married a man who came west for the gold rush in '59. He didn't find gold, but he did establish a successful mercantile in Canon City. They have 3 children now. And they have room for you, Isaac asked. For a while, Olivia said, until I find employment and a place of my own. She smoothed her skirts. I don't intend to be a burden to them for long. Isaac nodded, seeming to understand her pride. Canon City's a good town, growing fast with the railway coming. If you're looking to teach, I know Sheriff Miller serves on the school board. I could put in a word. Olivia turned to him, surprised. You know the sheriff well. A small smile crossed Isaac's face. We served together during the war. He came west the same time I did, keeps law and order in town now. They spent the remainder of the journey discussing Canon City, its growth, its people, and the opportunities it presented for someone like Olivia. By the time they reached the ranch, Olivia felt a spark of excitement about her future there, tempered only by the knowledge that she would need to wait for her new wagon to be completed. Over the next few days, Olivia settled into a routine at the ranch. She insisted on earning her keep, taking over the cooking from Pete, who seemed relieved by the arrangement, and helping with various household tasks. Isaac spent his mornings tending to ranch business and his afternoons working on her wagon, which he had set up in a covered area adjacent to the barn. 3 days after her arrival, Olivia carried a pitcher of cool water and 2 cups down to where Isaac was working. The afternoon sun was hot, and she could see the sweat darkening his shirt as he measured and cut a plank of wood. "Thought you might be thirsty," she called as she approached. Isaac looked up, pushing his hair back from his forehead with his forearm. "That's mighty thoughtful," he said, setting down his saw and coming to meet her. Olivia poured him a cup of water, which he drank gratefully. Standing close to him, she could smell the clean scent of his sweat mingled with wood shavings. "How is it coming along?" she asked, looking past him to the wagon's frame. "Good," Isaac replied, following her gaze. "I'm using the best parts from your old wagon and supplementing with seasoned oak I had set aside for another project." He pointed to where the wheels from her original wagon were propped against a workbench. "Pete took those into town yesterday to have the blacksmith check the iron rims, but they look sound." Olivia moved closer to examine his work. The frame of the wagon was taking shape, sturdy and well crafted. She ran her hand along a smoothly planed board, impressed with the quality of his craftsmanship. "You're very skilled," she said. "Thomas would have approved." "Was he a carpenter by trade?" Isaac asked, refilling his water cup. Olivia nodded. "He apprenticed to his father. They built furniture mostly, but some houses too." A familiar pang of grief touched her heart, but it wasn't as sharp as it once had been. He loved working with his hands, creating something lasting. Isaac studied her face. "You loved him very much." "I did," Olivia said simply. Then, feeling the need to change the subject, she added, "Pete said he delivered my note to Sarah." "Did he bring back a reply?" "He did," Isaac said, reaching into his pocket and producing a folded piece of paper. "Forgot to give it to you this morning with everything else going on." Olivia took the note eagerly, unfolding it to read her cousin's familiar handwriting. "She's relieved to know I'm safe," Olivia said after reading it, "and says there's no rush, they'll expect me when I arrive." She refolded the note. She also mentions that the school is indeed looking for another teacher for the fall term. "That's good news," Isaac said, a genuine smile lighting his face. "You should apply as soon as you get to town." Olivia returned his smile. "I intend to." Over the next week, Olivia found herself increasingly drawn to Isaac's company. In the evenings, after supper was cleared away, they often sat by the fire, talking late into the night. She learned about his childhood in Illinois, his parents who still lived there, and his hopes for expanding the ranch. In turn, she told him about growing up in Missouri, her brief career as a teacher, and her marriage to Thomas. What struck her most was how easy it was to talk to him. Isaac was a good listener, thoughtful in his responses, and surprisingly well-read for a rancher. They discovered a shared love of Dickens and debated the merits of Twain's earlier works versus his more recent ones. On her 10th day at the ranch, Olivia was hanging laundry on the line behind the house when she heard horses approaching. Looking up, she saw a wagon coming down the road toward the ranch house. A woman about her age was driving, with a man beside her and 2 small boys bouncing on the seat between them. "Rebecca," Isaac's voice called out as he emerged from the barn, wiping his hands on a rag. He strode toward the wagon, his face breaking into the widest smile Olivia had yet seen on him. Olivia smoothed her apron self-consciously as Isaac helped his sister down from the wagon, embracing her warmly before lifting each of his nephews in turn, their squeals of delight carrying across the yard. "Olivia," Isaac called, setting down the second boy and turning toward her. "Come meet my sister and her family." Taking a deep breath, Olivia made her way over, suddenly aware of how domestic she must look, hanging laundry at Isaac's ranch as if she belonged there. "Rebecca, this is Mrs. Olivia Zeller," Isaac said. "Her wagon broke down on the pass almost 2 weeks ago." I'm building her a new one. He turned to Olivia. This is my sister Rebecca Whitman, her husband George, and their boys Samuel and Daniel. Rebecca's eyes moved from Olivia to her brother and back again, a question in them that made Olivia's cheeks warm. How do you do, Mrs. Zeller? Rebecca said, extending her hand. I hope my brother has been a gentleman. Please call me Olivia, she replied, taking Rebecca's hand. And yes, your brother has been most kind. I don't know what I would have done without his help. Rebecca's smile was friendly, though her eyes remained curious. Well, we've come a week early for our visit. The boys were restless in town and George had business in Canon City anyway. She linked her arm through Olivia's. I hope you don't mind sharing your accommodations with us. Not at all, Olivia said quickly. It's your home, after all. I'm the guest here. As they walked toward the house, Rebecca leaned in closer. I have to say, I was surprised to hear Isaac had a woman staying at the ranch. He's always been such a private person. It's not we're not, Olivia stammered, feeling her face flush. Your brother is simply helping me with my wagon. I'm on my way to Canon City to stay with my cousin. Rebecca's eyes twinkled. Of course, she said, in a tone that suggested she didn't entirely believe Olivia's protests. Well, I'm glad he was there when you needed help. Isaac has always had a knack for being in the right place at the right time. The arrival of Rebecca and her family changed the dynamic at the ranch. The house felt full and lively with the boys running about, and Rebecca took over much of the cooking, insisting that Olivia was a guest and should be treated as such. In the evenings, they gathered in the main room, the adults talking while the twins played with wooden animals Isaac had carved for them. Olivia found herself drawn into the family circle, enjoying Rebecca's lively conversation and George's dry humor. On their third night at the ranch, after the boys had been put to bed, Rebecca produced a deck of cards and suggested a game. As George dealt the first hand, Isaac excused himself briefly to check on a mare that was close to foaling. As soon as he was out the door, Rebecca turned to Olivia. So tell me honestly, she said, her voice low but direct, what are your intentions toward my brother? Olivia nearly dropped her cards. I beg your pardon. Rebecca's expression was kind but serious. Isaac hasn't had a woman stay at this ranch since he built it, not counting family. And I've never seen him look at anyone the way he looks at you when he thinks no one is watching. Olivia's heart began to race. I assure you, there's nothing improper between us. Your brother has been a perfect gentleman. Oh, I have no doubt of that, Rebecca said with a small laugh. Isaac wouldn't know how to be anything else, but that's not what I asked. Before Olivia could formulate a response, the door opened and Isaac returned, bringing with him a gust of cool night air. Mare's fine, he announced, settling back into his chair. Just restless. He looked from his sister to Olivia, sensing the tension. Everything all right here. Just girl talk, Rebecca said innocently, arranging her cards. Your deal, George. Later that night, lying in her bed which Rebecca had insisted she keep while the Whitmans took the small guest room, Olivia found herself reflecting on Rebecca's words. Was it possible that Isaac had feelings for her? And more troublingly, what were her own feelings for him? She had come to admire his quiet strength, his intelligence, and his kindness. She enjoyed their conversations and found comfort in his presence. But was that merely gratitude, or was it something more? Thomas had been gone less than a year. Was it disloyal to feel this stirring in her heart for another man so soon? The next morning, Olivia woke early, before the rest of the household. She dressed quickly and slipped out to the kitchen, intending to start breakfast as a way to keep busy and avoid dwelling on her confusing thoughts. To her surprise, Isaac was already there, stoking the fire in the stove. You're up early, she said, pausing in the doorway. Isaac turned, a gentle smile crossing his face at the sight of her. "Thought I'd get an early start on your wagon today. Should be finished by tomorrow." "Tomorrow," Olivia repeated, a strange hollowness opening up in her chest. "So soon?" Isaac nodded, his eyes searching hers. "Just need to finish the seat and attach the canvas cover, then you'll be free to continue your journey." The word "free" hung between them, carrying a weight neither of them acknowledged. "I thank you," Olivia said, moving to the counter to begin preparing breakfast. "You've done so much for me. I don't know how I'll ever repay you." Isaac moved to stand beside her, close enough that she could feel the warmth radiating from him. "There's no debt between us, Olivia." The way he said her name, soft and filled with something unspoken, made her look up. His eyes, gray like storm clouds, held hers. "Isaac," she began, not sure what she meant to say. The sound of small feet running down the hallway broke the moment. Samuel and Daniel burst into the kitchen, their faces bright with morning energy. "Uncle Isaac," Samuel called, "you promised to show us the new calf today." Isaac stepped back from Olivia, ruffling his nephew's hair. "So I did, partner. After breakfast." The day passed in a flurry of activity. Isaac took the boys to see the new calf and then continued work on the wagon. Rebecca and Olivia prepared a special dinner, and George rode into Canon City on business, promising to return by nightfall. In the late afternoon, as Rebecca put the boys down for a nap, Olivia walked down to check on Isaac's progress with the wagon. She found him applying a coat of dark varnish to the wooden seat. "It's beautiful," she said, genuinely impressed by the craftsmanship. Isaac looked up, a streak of varnish on his cheek. "I think it'll serve you well, stronger than the original in some ways." Olivia ran her hand along the smooth wooden side. "I don't know what to say, Isaac. Thank you seems inadequate." Isaac set down his brush and wiped his hands on a rag. "You could stay," he said suddenly, his voice low but clear. Olivia's breath caught in her throat. "What?" "You could stay," Isaac repeated, taking a step toward her. "Not as a guest, but—" He hesitated, then continued, his eyes never leaving hers. "I know it's sudden and you've been through a lot, but these past 2 weeks, having you here, it's been—" He trailed off, searching for the right words. "It's been what?" Olivia whispered, her heart pounding. "Right," Isaac finished simply. "It's felt right." Olivia stood frozen, a tempest of emotions swirling within her. Part of her wanted to step into his arms to see where this unexpected feeling might lead. Another part recoiled in guilt and confusion. "Isaac, I can't," she finally said, her voice breaking. "My husband hasn't been gone a year. I don't know what I feel, and I have plans in Canon City." Pain flashed across Isaac's face, quickly masked. "Of course," he said, stepping back and picking up his brush again. "Forgive me, I spoke out of turn." "No, it's not that," Olivia said quickly. "It's just, you don't owe me an explanation," Isaac cut in, his tone gentle but firm. "The wagon will be ready tomorrow. You can leave whenever you're ready." Olivia wanted to say more, to explain the conflict raging within her, but the words wouldn't come. Instead, she nodded and retreated, her eyes burning with unshed tears. That evening, dinner was a strained affair despite Rebecca's efforts to keep conversation flowing. Isaac was quieter than usual, and Olivia could hardly eat, her stomach knotted with emotion. Even the twins seemed to sense the tension, their usual exuberance subdued. After dinner, as Olivia helped Rebecca clear the table, the other woman touched her arm gently. "Whatever happened between you and Isaac," Rebecca said quietly, "he'll recover. He's strong, but I haven't seen him look at anyone the way he looks at you in all the years since he came west." Olivia's hands trembled as she stacked the plates. "I'm not ready," she whispered. "It's too soon." Rebecca squeezed her arm sympathetically. "The heart doesn't always follow a timetable, Olivia. Sometimes it knows what it wants before the mind is ready to accept it. That night, sleep eluded Olivia. She tossed and turned, Rebecca's words echoing in her mind. Was she running from happiness out of fear? Or was she right to honor Thomas's memory and stick to her plans? As dawn broke, Olivia made her decision. She packed her belongings carefully, wrote a brief note thanking Isaac for his kindness, and left it on the kitchen table. Then, while the household still slept, she slipped out to the barn where her new wagon stood ready, the varnish dry and gleaming in the early morning light. With shaking hands, she hitched her horses, loaded her trunks, and climbed onto the seat. As she took up the reins, she allowed herself one last look at the ranch house where, for a brief time, she had found an unexpected sense of belonging. "Goodbye, Isaac," she whispered, and urged the horses forward. She had gone perhaps half a mile when she heard the sound of hoofbeats behind her. Her heart leaped into her throat as she pulled the wagon to a stop and turned to see Isaac galloping toward her, his hair wild from sleep, his shirt only half buttoned. "Olivia," he called, pulling his horse alongside the wagon. "Were you really going to leave without saying goodbye?" "I left a note," she said weakly. Isaac's eyes, stormy with emotion, held hers. "A note," he repeated, his voice rough. "After everything, I deserved more than a note." Tears sprang to Olivia's eyes. "I'm sorry, I thought it would be easier." "Easier for whom?" Isaac demanded. Then, his expression softening, he added, "Olivia, I understand if you're not ready. I understand if you need to go to Canon City to follow through with your plans. But don't leave like this, sneaking away at dawn as if what's happened between us meant nothing." "What has happened between us, Isaac?" Olivia asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Isaac's gaze never wavered. "I think you know, I think you feel it too." A tear slipped down Olivia's cheek. "I'm afraid," she admitted. "Of what? Of forgetting Thomas. Of failing again. Of—" She hesitated, then finished in a rush. "Of how much I already care for you after so little time." Isaac's expression changed, hope lighting his eyes. He swung down from his horse and approached the wagon, reaching up to take her hand. "Come back to the ranch," he said. "Not forever, just for today. Let's talk properly. Then, if you still want to go to Canon City, I'll escort you there myself." Olivia looked down at their joined hands, then back at his face, earnest, open, waiting for her decision. Slowly, she nodded. "One more day," she agreed. The ride back to the ranch was silent, but not uncomfortable. When they arrived, Rebecca was standing on the porch, arms crossed, but her expression softened when she saw Olivia returning with Isaac. "I'll keep the boys occupied," she said to Isaac as they approached. "You two need to talk." Isaac led Olivia past the main house toward a small rise where a lone oak tree stood sentinel over the ranch. They sat beneath its spreading branches, the morning sun filtering through the leaves above them. "I was married once," Isaac said suddenly, breaking the silence. "During the war." "Her name was Alina." Olivia turned to him, surprised. "You never mentioned her." "She died," Isaac continued, his voice flat. "Typhoid while I was away fighting. I got the letter 3 days before the Battle of Shiloh." He looked down at his hands. "I felt guilty for years for not being there, for surviving when she didn't." "Isaac, I'm so sorry," Olivia said softly. "I'm not telling you this for sympathy," Isaac said, meeting her eyes again. "I'm telling you because I understand what it is to lose someone you love, to feel like you'll never find that kind of happiness again." He paused. "And to feel guilty when you start to have feelings for someone new." Olivia's breath caught. "How did you move past it?" "Time," Isaac said simply. "And realizing that Alina wouldn't have wanted me to live the rest of my life alone. She was the most generous person I've ever known. She would have wanted me to find happiness again." "Thomas was like that too," Olivia admitted, the words coming easier than she expected. "Always thinking of others, always wanting the best for everyone around him. Isaac nodded. So ask yourself, what would Thomas want for you? To spend your life in mourning, or to find joy again when the opportunity presents itself? Olivia considered his words, feeling something shift within her heart. He would want me to be happy, she said finally. He told me so before he died. He made me promise not to waste my life grieving. Isaac reached for her hand, enfolding it in his larger one. I'm not asking you to forget him, Olivia. I would never ask that. I'm just asking for a chance. A chance for what? Olivia asked, though she already knew the answer. A chance to court you properly, Isaac said. To see if what I feel, what I hope we both feel, can grow into something lasting. He squeezed her hand gently. You can still go to Canon City. You can still pursue your teaching. I'd never ask you to give up your dreams, but maybe over time we could build new dreams together. Olivia looked out over the ranch, the rolling hills, the grazing cattle, the sturdy buildings that Isaac had built with his own hands. She thought of their evenings by the fire, the easy conversation, the sense of peace she'd found in his presence. And she thought of Thomas, imagining what he would say if he could see her now. Live, Livy, he had whispered with his final breath. Promise me you'll live. Slowly, Olivia turned back to Isaac. I think I'd like that, she said, her voice steady despite the tears gathering in her eyes. A chance. Isaac's smile was like the sun breaking through clouds. Gently, he raised her hand to his lips and pressed a kiss to her knuckles, sealing their understanding. They sat beneath the oak for hours, talking as they never had before about their hopes and fears, their pasts and possible futures. When they finally walked back to the ranch house, hand in hand, Rebecca took one look at their faces and broke into a wide smile. Well, she said, her eyes dancing with approval, I suppose we'll be seeing a lot more of you, Olivia. The following week passed in a sweet haze of new beginnings. Olivia sent another letter to her cousin Sarah, explaining that she would be delayed a while longer. Isaac courted her with a gentle persistence that touched her deeply, bringing her wildflowers he'd picked on his morning rides, reading to her from his favorite books in the evenings, and teaching her about the ranch that he loved so dearly. As Rebecca and her family prepared to return to Denver, she embraced Olivia warmly. You'll be good for him, she whispered. He's been alone too long. The day after the Whitmans departed, Isaac suggested a ride to show Olivia more of his land. They packed a simple picnic and set out on horseback, Isaac leading the way across rolling hills dotted with wildflowers and stands of pine. By midday, they reached a small, clear stream that cut through a meadow. As they dismounted and spread their blanket beneath a cottonwood tree, Olivia was struck by the beauty of this place that Isaac called home. What are you thinking? Isaac asked as they finished their lunch, watching her gaze travel across the landscape. That it's peaceful here, Olivia replied honestly. I never thought I could feel this kind of peace again after Thomas died. Isaac's expression grew serious. Olivia, he began, then paused as if gathering his courage. I know it's only been a few weeks, and I know this might seem sudden, but I've never been more certain of anything in my life. Olivia's heart began to race as Isaac took her hand in his. I'm not asking you to forget your past, he continued. I'm asking you to let me be part of your future. His gray eyes, usually so steady, were filled with vulnerability and hope. I love you, Olivia Zeller. I think I started falling in love with you the moment I saw you standing beside that broken wagon, ready to defend yourself with that revolver even though you were shaking from head to toe. A laugh bubbled up through Olivia's tears. I was terrified, she admitted. But you stood your ground, Isaac said, his voice filled with admiration. That's when I knew you were someone special. He reached into his pocket and withdrew a simple gold ring set with a small pearl. "This was my grandmother's," he said. "I've carried it with me since I came west, waiting for the right woman to give it to." He held it out to her, his hand steady despite the emotion in his voice. "Will you marry me, Olivia? Will you let me build you not just a wagon, but a life?" Olivia looked at the ring, then at the man before her, strong, kind, honorable Isaac, who had come into her life when she least expected it but needed it most. In that moment, she felt Thomas's presence, not as a painful reminder of loss, but as a gentle blessing. "Yes," she whispered, tears streaming down her face. "Yes, I will marry you, Isaac." As he slipped the ring onto her finger, then drew her into his arms for their first kiss, Olivia knew that her journey hadn't ended when her wagon broke down on that lonely trail. In many ways, it had only just begun. 3 months later, on a crisp October day, Olivia stood in the bedroom of what was now her home, gazing at her reflection in the mirror. Her wedding dress, made by Rebecca, who had returned for the occasion, was simple but elegant ivory satin with lace at the collar and cuffs. A knock at the door drew her attention, and Rebecca entered, her eyes bright with unshed tears. "You look beautiful," she said, coming to stand beside Olivia. "Isaac won't know what hit him." Olivia smiled, touching the ring that had been her engagement gift and would soon be joined by a wedding band. "I never thought I'd be a bride again," she admitted. "Never thought I'd feel this way again." Rebecca squeezed her hand. "Life has a way of surprising us when we least expect it." She adjusted a pin in Olivia's upswept hair. "Are you ready? Everyone's waiting." The everyone was a small but meaningful gathering: Rebecca and her family, Pete and some of the neighboring ranchers, Sheriff Miller and his wife from Canon City, and most touchingly, Olivia's cousin Sarah and her family, who had made the journey to celebrate with them. As Olivia stepped out onto the porch, she saw Isaac waiting for her beneath an arch of autumn flowers. He stood tall and straight, dressed in a new black suit, his usually unruly hair neatly combed. But it was the look on his face as he saw her that took Olivia's breath away, a look of such pure joy and love that it banished any lingering doubts. Sheriff Miller, who was officiating the ceremony, smiled as Olivia walked toward Isaac, each step bringing her closer to her new life. When she reached him and took his hands, Isaac leaned down to whisper in her ear. "You are more beautiful than I deserve," he said, his voice husky with emotion. "We deserve each other," Olivia whispered back, her heart full. The ceremony was brief but meaningful. They exchanged simple vows and rings, a gold band joining the pearl ring on Olivia's finger, and a matching band for Isaac. When Sheriff Miller pronounced them husband and wife, Isaac's kiss was gentle and reverent, a promise of all that was to come. The celebration that followed was joyous, a feast prepared by Rebecca and Sarah, music provided by a fiddler from a neighboring ranch, and dancing that continued well into the evening. As the sun began to set, casting golden light across the land, Isaac led Olivia away from the festivities to the spot beneath the oak tree where they had first decided to give love a chance. "Happy?" he asked, his arm around her waist. "More than I thought possible," Olivia replied honestly, leaning into his embrace. "When my wagon broke down that day, I thought it was the worst luck. Now I know it was the best thing that could have happened." Isaac smiled, pressing a kiss to her temple. "Sometimes the best journeys are the ones we don't plan." As they stood together, watching the sun sink below the horizon, Olivia thought of the long and winding path that had brought her here, the grief and loss, the courage it had taken to start over, and the unexpected joy she had found when her plans went awry. "I love you, Isaac Prescott," she said, turning in his arms to face him. "And I love you, Olivia Prescott," he replied, the name still new and wonderful on his lips. As his mouth found hers in a kiss that promised forever, Olivia knew that the broken wagon that had seemed like such a disaster had, in fact, been the first step toward building something far more precious, a love and a life that would endure long after the wood and wheels had turned to dust. 5 years later, Olivia stood on the porch of the ranch house, watching as Isaac led their 3-year-old son Thomas on his first pony ride around the corral. The little boy's delighted squeals carried across the yard, mingling with the laughter of their 1-year-old daughter Alina, who sat on a blanket at Olivia's feet, reaching for the wooden blocks Isaac had carved for her. "Easy now, Tommy," Isaac called as the pony picked up pace slightly. "Hold the reins like I showed you." The sight of them together, her husband's strong hands steadying their son, the matching expressions of concentration on their faces, filled Olivia's heart with such love it was almost painful. So much had changed in 5 years. The ranch had prospered under Isaac's careful management, growing to include 300 head of cattle and several prize horses. They had built an addition onto the house when Alina was born, and Isaac had recently begun work on a small schoolhouse on their property, fulfilling Olivia's wish to teach again. Children from neighboring ranches would come 3 days a week for lessons, allowing Olivia to practice her profession while remaining close to her own children. It was a compromise that embodied their marriage, each supporting the other's dreams while building something beautiful together. "Mama, look," Thomas called, his face alight with pride as he guided the pony in a circle without his father's help. "I'm doing it." "I see you, sweetheart," Olivia called back, waving. "You're a natural, just like your papa." Isaac looked up at her words, his eyes finding hers across the yard. Even after 5 years, that look still made her heart skip a beat, the love and gratitude in his gaze a reflection of her own feelings. As the lesson concluded, Isaac lifted Thomas from the pony and set him on the ground. The boy immediately ran toward the house, eager to tell his mother every detail of his adventure. Isaac followed at a more measured pace, leading the pony back toward the stable. "Did you see me, Mama?" Thomas asked, climbing onto the porch and throwing his arms around her legs. "Papa says I'm the best rider he's ever seen, does he now?" Olivia laughed, ruffling his dark hair so like Isaac's. "Well, your papa would know." "Can I have a biscuit?" Thomas asked, already moving toward the door. "Riding makes me hungry." "1 biscuit," Olivia conceded. "And take 1 to Pete, too. He's fixing the corral gate." As Thomas disappeared into the house, Isaac joined Olivia on the porch, bending to scoop up Alina, who reached for him with chubby hands. "Hello, princess," he said, pressing a kiss to her forehead. The little girl giggled, patting his cheeks with her hands. Her eyes, unlike her brother's, were Olivia's, a warm brown that seemed to take in everything with quiet intelligence. "You're teaching him well," Olivia said, nodding toward the corral where the pony now grazed peacefully. "He's a quick learner," Isaac replied, bouncing Alina gently in his arms. "Gets that from his mother." Olivia smiled, leaning into his side as they stood together, looking out over their land. In the distance, storm clouds were gathering, promising a summer shower that would nourish the pastures and fill the streams. "Rain's coming," Isaac observed. "Good timing, the south pasture needs it." "Remember that first storm after we were married?" Olivia asked, a mischievous glint in her eye. "When we got caught out by the creek." Isaac's arm tightened around her waist, his memory clearly following the same path as hers to the summer cloudburst that had drenched them both, leading to a hasty retreat to the small line shack, and an afternoon spent in each other's arms while rain drummed on the roof above them. "How could I forget?" he murmured, his voice lowering. "Best storm of my life." A comfortable silence fell between them, broken only by Alina's contented babbling as she played with the buttons on Isaac's shirt. These were the moments Olivia treasured most, the quiet, ordinary times when the fullness of her life seemed almost too much to contain. "Sarah's letter came today," she said after a while. "She and James are expecting their fourth in December." "That's wonderful news," Isaac said. "We should ride into Canon City to see them soon. It's been too long." Olivia nodded in agreement. They tried to visit Canon City every few months, maintaining the connection with her cousin's family. Sarah and James had become dear friends to both of them, and their children were close in age to Thomas and Eleanor. "I was thinking," Olivia began, a slight nervousness in her voice, "perhaps we could wait until spring for that visit." Isaac looked down at her, a question in his eyes. "Any particular reason?" Olivia met his gaze steadily, a smile curving her lips. "By spring, the baby will be old enough to travel comfortably." For a moment, Isaac stared at her uncomprehendingly. Then understanding dawned, his eyes widening. "Are you saying?" Olivia nodded, happiness bubbling up inside her. "Dr. Matthews confirmed it yesterday when he was out seeing to the Johnsons' new baby. We're expecting again, Isaac, in January." Joy transformed Isaac's face as he wrapped his free arm around her, drawing her close while still cradling Eleanor. "Oh, Liv," he whispered, using the nickname only he ever called her. "That's the best news." As his lips found hers in a tender kiss, Olivia felt a profound sense of gratitude wash over her. From the wreckage of her broken wagon had come this extraordinary life, a loving husband, beautiful children, meaningful work, and a home filled with laughter and warmth. That evening, after the children were asleep and the rain had passed, leaving behind the fresh scent of wet earth, Isaac and Olivia sat on the porch swing he had built for her second birthday as his wife. A lantern cast a gentle glow around them as they rocked slowly, Olivia's head resting on Isaac's shoulder. "I've been thinking," Isaac said, breaking the comfortable silence. "With the new baby coming, maybe it's time we hired someone to help with the house." Rebecca mentioned her friend's daughter is looking for a position. She's a good girl, responsible. Olivia considered his suggestion. She had always taken pride in managing their home herself, but with the school starting soon and another baby on the way, some help would be welcome. "That might be wise," she agreed. "As long as she doesn't mind children underfoot and a house that's never quite tidy." Isaac chuckled, pressing a kiss to her hair. "I'll write to Rebecca tomorrow." They fell silent again, listening to the chorus of night insects and the occasional low of cattle in the distant pastures. Olivia's hand rested on her still flat stomach, wondering about the new life growing within her. "What do you think about Joseph for a boy?" she asked suddenly. "After your father." Isaac's hand covered hers on her stomach, his touch warm and reassuring. "I like that," he said. "And if it's a girl, Grace," Olivia replied. "It seems fitting given all the grace that's been shown to us." Isaac nodded, understanding her meaning without need for explanation. "Joseph or Grace Prescott," he said, testing the names, "has a nice sound to it." As the night deepened around them, stars appearing in the vast Colorado sky, Olivia found herself reflecting on the journey that had brought her here. The pain and loss that had sent her west, the broken wagon that had seemed like such a disaster, the stranger who had become her heart's home. "Do you ever wonder," she asked softly, "what would have happened if my wagon hadn't broken that day, if we had never met?" Isaac was quiet for a moment, his hand continuing its gentle caress over hers. "I think we would have found each other somehow," he said finally. "Some things are just meant to be." Olivia smiled in the darkness, comforted by his certainty. "I built you a wagon," he had said on their wedding night, "but you rebuilt me." Now, safe in the circle of his arms with their children sleeping peacefully inside and a new life growing within her, Olivia knew they had built something far more precious than any wagon. They had built a love that would carry them through all the journeys yet to come. As the years passed, the Prescott Ranch flourished, becoming one of the most respected in the territory. Isaac's innovative farming methods and keen business sense, combined with Olivia's careful bookkeeping and management of the household, created a prosperous enterprise that supported not only their growing family, but also provided employment for several local families. Joseph Prescott arrived on a snowy January morning in 1877, a healthy, robust boy with his mother's quiet temperament and his father's determined spirit. As he grew, he showed a natural affinity for horses that delighted Isaac and a love of books that pleased Olivia. The small schoolhouse that Isaac had built became a center of learning for children from miles around, with Olivia teaching 3 days a week. Her reputation as a kind but firm educator spread throughout the region, and families would often relocate their homesteads to be within traveling distance of Mrs. Prescott's school. In the spring of 1880, their family was completed with the birth of twins, a boy and girl they named William and Catherine. The house that had once seemed so spacious now rang with the laughter and occasional squabbles of 5 children, creating a joyful chaos that Olivia wouldn't have traded for all the peace in the world. On their 10th wedding anniversary, Isaac surprised Olivia by taking her to Denver for a week, leaving the children in the capable hands of Rebecca and a hired girl. They attended the theater, dined in fine restaurants, and spent long, leisurely mornings in their hotel room, rediscovering each other away from the demands of ranch life and parenthood. "I have something for you," Isaac said on their final night in Denver, producing a small velvet box. Inside, Olivia found a gold locket, beautifully engraved with their initials. When she opened it, she found a tiny painting of their 5 children on one side and a miniature of their ranch house on the other. "Oh, Isaac," she breathed, tears springing to her eyes. "It's perfect." "10 years," he said, helping her fasten it around her neck. "The happiest of my life." "And mine," Olivia replied, her fingers tracing the smooth gold surface. "Who would have thought a broken wagon could lead to such happiness?" Isaac smiled, drawing her into his arms. "I knew that day that you were special, Liv. I just didn't know how completely you would change my life." As they held each other in the soft lamplight of their hotel room, Olivia reflected on the journey they had shared, the challenges they had faced together, the family they had created, the life they had built from what had seemed like disaster. When they returned to the ranch, they were greeted by their children running down the drive, faces alight with excitement at their parents' return. As Isaac lifted the youngest twins, one in each arm, and Thomas, Eleanor, and Joseph crowded around Olivia, she felt her heart might burst with fullness. That night, after the children were asleep and the house had settled into its familiar creaks and sighs, Olivia and Isaac stood on the porch, gazing up at the star-filled sky. "You remember what you told me the day you proposed?" Olivia asked, her head resting against his shoulder. "That you wanted to build me not just a wagon, but a life." Isaac's arm tightened around her waist. "I remember." Olivia turned in his embrace, looking up at the face she had loved for a decade, now with a few more lines around the eyes, a touch of silver at his temples, but still as dear to her as the day she had first seen him riding toward her broken wagon. "You kept your promise," she said softly. "You built me the most beautiful life I could have imagined." As his lips found hers in a kiss as tender and passionate as their first, Olivia knew with absolute certainty that the broken wagon that had once seemed like such a misfortune had, in fact, been the greatest blessing of her life, the unexpected detour that had led her home. In the years that followed, the Prescott family continued to grow and thrive. Thomas, their eldest, followed in his father's footsteps, learning every aspect of ranch management while developing his own ideas for expansion. Eleanor showed a talent for teaching that matched her mother's, eventually taking over much of the responsibility for the schoolhouse, as Olivia devoted more time to her younger children and community affairs. Joseph, true to his early inclinations, became known throughout Colorado territory for his skill with horses, breeding and training some of the finest stock in the West. The twins, William and Catherine, though still young, already showed the independence and determination that characterized the Prescott family. In 1885, 15 years after Olivia's wagon had broken down on the trail to Canon City, the town council approached Isaac about serving as mayor. The region had grown substantially, with the railroad bringing new settlers and commerce, and Isaac's reputation for fairness and good judgment made him a natural choice for leadership. "What do you think?" he asked Olivia as they sat by the fire one evening, discussing the unexpected offer. "It would mean more time in town, less on the ranch." Olivia considered, her fingers working steadily at the quilt she was making for Catherine's bed. "Thomas is more than capable of handling more responsibility here," she said thoughtfully. "And you've always had a gift for bringing people together, for finding solutions that work for everyone." Isaac watched her face, as he always did when making important decisions. Over the years, he had come to rely on her insight and wisdom as much as she relied on his strength and steadiness. "It would be a chance to help shape the future of Canon City," he acknowledged. "Ensure it grows in a way that benefits everyone, not just the wealthy or well-connected." Olivia smiled, setting aside her quilting to take his hand. "Then I think you should accept. The children and I will support you, however we can." And so Isaac Prescott became Mayor Prescott, serving 3 consecutive terms during which Canon City saw unprecedented growth and prosperity. Olivia, meanwhile, became a respected figure in her own right, founding the town's first library and organizing a committee to ensure education was available to all children in the region, regardless of their parents' means or background. Their home remained the center of their world, a place of warmth and welcome not only for their own family, but for neighbors, friends, and even strangers passing through. The wagon that Isaac had built for Olivia remained in use for many years, eventually being retired to a place of honor in the barn, a tangible reminder of their beginning. On a golden autumn day in 1896, 25 years after they had first met, Isaac and Olivia stood beneath the oak tree where he had proposed, surrounded by their children, grandchildren, and friends who had gathered to celebrate their silver anniversary. Thomas, now a tall, serious young man of 23 with a wife of his own, raised a glass in toast. "To my parents," he said, his voice carrying across the assembled guests, "who taught us by example what it means to build a life of purpose, integrity, and love." As cheers and applause erupted around them, Isaac turned to Olivia, taking her hand in his. Her hair was threaded with silver now, her face lined with the evidence of a life fully lived, but to him, she was as beautiful as the day he had first seen her, standing beside her broken wagon with determination in her eyes. 25 years, he said softly, for her ears alone. "And I'd do it all again in a heartbeat." Olivia's eyes, still as warm and expressive as ever, filled with tears of happiness. "So would I," she replied, squeezing his hand. "Every moment." As the celebration continued around them, with grandchildren running through the grass and old friends sharing stories of years gone by, Olivia leaned against Isaac's solid presence, grateful for the twist of fate that had brought them together. The broken wagon that had once seemed like such a disaster had led her to this man, this family, this life of purpose and joy. It had been the beginning of a journey more beautiful and fulfilling than she could ever have imagined on that dusty trail so many years ago. And as Isaac's arm circled her waist, drawing her close as they had stood countless times before, Olivia knew with absolute certainty that they had built something that would endure long after they were gone, a legacy of love, strength, and kindness that would continue through their children and their children's children, as enduring as the land itself. "I love you, Isaac Prescott," she said, the words as true now as they had been the first time she spoke them. "And I love you, Olivia Prescott," he replied, bending to press a kiss to her lips, sealing once more the promise they had made beneath this same tree a quarter-century before to build not just a wagon, but a life of love that would carry them through all the journeys yet to come.